Okay, tonight we're going to talk about schemas again, and I realized before I was just going through my archive and I was looking at the Schema 1 video, and I just realized that I never really did any follow-ups to this. So I wanted to put together something here real quick, and and again, this is going to be really short. It's not going to be any big deal, but I wanted to be able to show you guys how to make a good case for schemas and how you should start thinking about schemas, because in the last video, or I guess in that first video, what I did was I outlined that schemas are security objects, and that's true, but they're also organizational objects as well, right? A good reason to use schemas isn't just to regulate security to objects at the schema level so that it's easier to manage. That's a good enough reason on its own, right? Another really good reason, like I said, is for organization. And schemas really give you a way to create, more of a database within a database, right? And what I mean by that is, if you look at some of the schema objects I've created in this database right here that I've called schema stuff, right? No big deal. Oops, sorry. Come back to me. There we are. You can see some of the schemas I created here. I've got an archive schema, CRM schema, data collection, DBA, ETL temp, from Oracle, intranet, previous day. Now, it's pretty easy just looking at those to figure out what these schemas are for, right? I mean, you'd have to be pretty brain dead to not know what an archive schema is for. You'd have to be, pretty brain dead to not know what a data collection schema is for, or what a DBA schema is for. I mean, the DBA schema is clearly for objects that the DBAs use to manage the database, right? I mean, that's, from Oracle. Let's say you get an Oracle feed, and it's for a particular process, or maybe it's, just a generic Oracle feed. Well, that's pretty easy to figure out. Whatever it's used for, the data in this schema comes from Oracle, right? Intranet is another one, right? I mean, that's clearly used to run the intranet. Previous day, a lot of ETL processes have, the need to snapshot the previous day, and there are a number of reasons for something like that that maybe I'll get into in another video. But as it stands right now, this is a really good, this is a really good way to mark the previous day. There are some reasons you'd do that. ETL temp, clearly it holds temp objects for ETL. So you see, this is, even getting outside of the security, which it still maintains here very well, right? Because now you can ensure that only the DBAs see the DBA code or can access the DBA code. You don't have to manage that. You don't have to manage that on an object-by-object basis, right? You can give only the DBAs rights to that schema, and then anything in there, only they can get to, and you don't have to keep round-robin assigning reports every time you create a new object. So, really start thinking about your processes in ways of being self-documenting. I mean, when you get somebody new in, say you get a new ETL guy in or a new DBA in, it's really nice to be able to point them at schemas and saying, you don't have to, if you want them to be able to manage the CRM process, right? You get the new ETL guy and you say, I want you to take this the CRM process and change all of the objects to this, or add auditing to all of the objects, or do something like that, right? He doesn't have to go and ask you, well, what are all of the CRM objects? You can say they're all in the CRM schema. Now go for it. Just do it. You don't have to babysit him or come up with some kind of special CRM convention, which, naming conventions is another thing, right? I mean, ordinarily, and I'm doing this on the fly here, so ordinarily, if I had a bunch of objects that I wanted to all be grouped together, because say that you've got, say that you're looking at tables or procedures, right? And inside these tables, or inside this guy right here, I don't have any tables in here, but you would want all the CRM stuff to be listed in a row, right? So you wouldn't want to say, or let's do procedures because I don't feel like doing a table. So let's say create procedure get customers, and let's say procedure take out the trash, and create procedure get newest orders, and create procedure what would be another one, web tasks. Okay, so looking at these guys, for an experienced ETL person just coming in the door, or a beginner ETL person just coming in the door, or somebody even who's been here for a while, there is absolutely nothing about any of those that says what they do or what they belong to. It's absolutely ridiculous. You can't tell what they do. And so, when somebody takes this over, when somebody takes this process over, you actually have to give them a list of the objects, and if you create new objects, then you have to keep that list up, right? So you have to keep a Word doc somewhere, or some kind of documentation somewhere that says what all the objects are, and that's assuming that your organization is forethinking enough to do something like that. If not, then you've got to go dig through the code and find all the objects that are used and then document them that way, right? And well, that's just one pain in the ass after another. So this is kind of self-documenting. If I do something like this, right? There. Now I may not know what these objects do specifically, but I can tell very easily that they belong to the CRM process. And if I put all of my CRM objects in the CRM schema, then I never have to go keep a documented external list of the CRM objects. I can, they'll be in the schema. So it's a way of self-documenting your database and making things obvious without having to go through a lot of trouble. And of course, like I said, you still get the security benefits, right? I mean, you can still lock this stuff down at a schema level, and it's good stuff. So, start thinking of schemas as, a database within a database, and start using schemas as a way to segregate things from an organization and a documentation level. It's a lot easier when if you ever have to drop a lot of objects, or if you ever have to document a lot of objects. It's so much easier if you've got them in their own schema. Then you don't have to worry about accidentally deleting, say that there's a get customers SP in 5 different schemas. You don't have to worry about accidentally deleting the wrong one, or accidentally deleting one you're not supposed to, because you're only going to be deleting things in that schema. So anyway, that's all I really had this time. It's like I said, it's a short video, but I think it's important because a lot of people don't think of schemas as a way to organize and document their processes. And if you started, then you'd find it a lot easier to find your objects and to use them, because they're all right there in the same place, and they do exactly what the schema says they do. Anyway, bye.